So I'm going to talk about how to choose the right products to sell to schools because the fact is some local food products are easier than others to sell to schools, and we will get into that. But the first question I have for you all is sort of interactive and will help me know what to talk about, where you all are located. So I have two questions for you. Number one, I would ask, what does your farm raise? But I know some farms raise quite a few things. So instead, I'm going to ask you, what items are you thinking about selling farm to school? So if you're a produce farm that grows 15 different produce items, just list maybe the top 2 or 3 that you're thinking about. Your meat, dairy, other things. So please list for me the top 2 items that you're thinking about selling farm to school. Could be a prepared food item even. And then secondly, can you please put in the chat what county you would be selling, what county school system, whether could be a private school that you're interested in selling to, because I'm going to give some examples later in the presentation, and I want it to be appropriate for where you all are across the state. So give folks a second to put that in the chat. Or if people are calling in, you can unmute and tell me the items in your county. We don't have too many people on the call, so. All right, answers are starting to come in. Tomatoes, lettuce, lipstick peppers, that is a brand new term to me, and I thought I knew my veggies pretty well, so I'll have to look that up afterwards. Ground beef and sausage, great. Greens, radishes, carrots, snow peas, awesome. Pendleton County, yep, okay. Lettuce, raspberries, blueberries, cherry tomatoes, Breathitt County. Mushrooms, green beans, meat or harden, also ginger and garlic, perfect. Okay, so we've got some folks spread out across the state: Central Kentucky, Northern Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky, into E-Town. All right, thank you all. So with that being said, we'll get into the presentation. All right, so our learning objectives, we're going to figure out how your farm products fit into school meal menus, identify products and quantities that fit best, know how your products can maybe change to meet the needs of school buyers, and we're going to talk about product pricing and production costs to help determine the best product for school markets. I just want to say that my approach to farm to school and K-Card's approach as an organization is really for farms to be sustainable and profitable long term. So you really want to make sure that you're entering into farm to school in a way that does make some money for your farm. Everyone wants to feed children. There's not a more noble cause, but if you can't pay yourself to keep it going, that's not a good thing. So, all right. So we're going to go through some questions that you need to think about when you're choosing the best product. Number one, does your school cook food from scratch? I don't know, I don't have children in school, so I haven't been in a school cafeteria, while it's going in a little while, but some of you all, perhaps when you grew up and went to school, there was more scratch cooking than what goes on in today's schools. And I don't mean to be down, because it really just varies depending on your school district. So I don't have a blanket answer for what this looks like across Kentucky. It just really depends. It depends on labor, if there's enough staff in the kitchen to really prep raw product. It depends on equipment that the kitchen is equipped with to prepare food. So that's the first thing you want to consider. Um, do they have a central kitchen? So what I mean by this, sometimes it's called a commissary kitchen, but for example, the way I understand it is that Jefferson County Public Schools, where Louisville is, they have a commissary kitchen where they do most of their cooking in one large kitchen, and they distribute out to most of their schools. From my work with school systems across Kentucky, that is not the case in most school districts across Kentucky. So if your county has one high school, one middle school, and say 3 elementary schools, it's likely that they all have their own kitchen, and they do prep in each of those kitchens. So that that will affect delivery, the amount of delivery stops you need to make, which affects profitability. So it's just something to think about. Ask your food service director when you're talking to them how many delivery points that you'll need to make, how many kitchens. It's a good idea to take a look at your school system's existing menu so that you get a sense of what they're already serving. Because if a food service director is new to working with local farmers, it may be easier for them if they're not thinking about totally outside the box products. Now, I would encourage that you could get to that point, but when you're first starting to develop a relationship, you might look for what they're already serving. Can you meet the volume needs of the schools? And I would just say that this is a consideration. Some food service directors in various schools will work with you regardless of if you can meet the entire needs of the school system. So, for example, in Hardin County, where Elizabethtown is, I know the food service director there has paired up farms with individual schools because that farm didn't have enough product to feed the whole county, but the volume was a great match for 2 elementary schools, for example. So it's just, sorry, my dog just knocked over her food bowl. It's just something to think about. So, and then the other thing is, what items do the kids like to eat? And I admit that I need to be reminded of this because I am at the age and have the taste buds where I like any and all vegetables, but it wasn't that way when I was a child. So I might think, for example, I don't know, a radish or a butternut squash would be a great thing to serve a child, and it can be, but the staff in the kitchen and the food service director may not want to, yeah, Swiss chard is a good example, may not want to put all the effort into buying local food, chopping it up, serving it, only to hear the kids complain, oh, what's this? We don't want to eat this. So just something to consider, not a discouragement. We've seen some really creative and innovative ways to kind of encourage children to try new foods. Does the item meet national school lunch procurement or program standards? So this is something that you need to know about as well, is that food service directors have to buy and serve to their students a certain amount of red vegetables, orange vegetables, dark leafy vegetables. And so your one type of lettuce may not meet the dark leafy green category, but another variety of lettuce may. So it gets kind of complicated. So I'm not going to go any more in detail. We'll go to the next slide. All right, the first thing that you need to consider, your starting point, is what crops do you grow, and the key word is profitably. What crops do you grow that you make money on? And you need to know that, because there's a good chance there may be some items that you produce or grow that you're selling at a break even, or the price point is just going to be way too large for schools. So identify what crops you grow profitably. Jackie talked about how to sell to schools, direct to a school through a distributor. Her data that she showed as far as the rates in Kentucky being higher, with food service directors being willing to purchase direct from farmers, I find that to be true in my work. Honestly, we don't have a vast network of food hubs in Kentucky compared to some other states, so we have to be a little more scrappy and do the delivery ourselves and cultivate those relationships ourselves. And then the other thing, especially if you're growing crops, not meats, but I won't make the whole presentation about crops because I think meat can be an amazing school food as well, but seasonality is a huge consideration. So do remember that it's August to May. Sometimes schools have summer feeding programs. And so are you really just talking about a sales relationship that lasts from August to October? Are you growing things in a high tunnel that you could get you through November, December? You just need to kind of consider that. So, all right, next slide. Oh, I'm going to point out, some of you all might recognize this picture, but it is Madison County Food Service Director Scott Anderson. So he's buying some local broccoli and cauliflower there. So, okay. So the first thing I said was take a look at your school menu, and I've pulled on this slide Hardin County High School menu. And not every school district has this up-to-date information, so they actually listed out, I guess this is about a year ago now, but exactly what was being served on the individual days. Not every school district has that, but some of them do, so it's worth looking for. And I'll show you some of the things I pull out by looking at these menus. So popcorn, chicken, rolls, rice, fajitas, cheese sauce. I mean, there may be some minimal options for local foods there, but okay, the first thing on the Monday menu that really catches my eye is the hamburger. We do have schools in Kentucky that are serving hamburgers with local ground beef patties. Okay, so I'm going to keep scrolling. I know we have some marinara sauce in the state that's local. Corn would be a great opportunity, a salad. Grapes probably wouldn't be an option. These things are offered almost every day. Wow. Grape tomatoes, apples, baby carrots. I see some potential there. You know, meatballs, taco meat, baked potato, green beans. Can be an interesting thing to look at. And I'm gonna do something that makes me nervous and pause my PowerPoint presentation because no, I'll wait till later on in the presentation. I want to show you all where to find this information. I'm going to give you an example. I'm just going to go to a random school page and show you kind of how to find it. And you can also think outside the box. So say if a school was serving canned peaches on a day, for example, see if they would mind substituting fresh apples. That probably would be a totally fine substitution for them because it still fills their fruit requirement. But you can't maybe sub a hamburger for canned peaches. I don't know if you all can see this at the very bottom of the screen, but you do kind of see like the requirement. So a cup of vegetables daily, a cup of fruit daily, and it's a little more complicated at that, but okay, next slide. Okay, so talked about this in the beginning, but work with your food service director to determine the number of servings a product is and how that translates into pounds. So likely if they haven't worked with local food farmers in the past, they have this calculator that they use online that tells them, okay, I get this standard bag size of product from GFS, and it comes on a truck every week, and it automatically translates into this many servings. You might need to do a little more of that math with your product that's coming in as a raw, unprocessed, most likely. And like I said earlier, do see if there's options for smaller volumes if that's what makes sense for you. So perhaps just the high school would be a good buyer for butternut squash, not the elementary school. I don't know. It's going to look different everywhere, but just be open to that conversation. And going through my notes, sorry. All right, next slide. So this is an example of the USDA Food and Nutrition Service Food Buying Guide, where it just translates. So this is all just for fresh carrots, but you know, a pound, a 1/4 cup raw chopped. They've got it for chopped, shredded with dressing. Likely your food service director can do these equations for you. You don't need to necessarily do this, but you need to have the conversation. And you need to recognize that your food service director will have to go to that extra step to buy it from you instead of GFS. All right. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but infrastructure, so equipment, and staff, in a large way staff, will dictate what products a school can serve. And the picture in this slide is at Clark County Public Schools. They were awarded a grant to purchase this slicer dicer. So this takes, you know, if a school is used to getting in carrot sticks or carrot coins already, but now they're buying local carrots that come in whole, this piece of equipment, you just put it in there, pull the handle down like she's doing, and you can see all the different things that she's sliced. I think they're probably going to roast those afterwards. But there are resources and equipment to help make local food procurement a little bit easier. I'm going to pause because I have a question in the chat. Hold on just a second. Are we seeing any pushback from large food companies when local farms are selling into school systems? My answer is not that I know of. I don't, especially the last couple years, large food companies have had large supply chain disruptions. So that has started some local food sales because it was the only way to get it in some cases, or the only timely way to get it, but not that I know of, David. It may exist, but so think about if there's equipment that your school, you know, could use. There may be funding out there for that, but okay. And then the heat and serve bullet point was just to note, you know, it looks different in every school system, but I've heard that some school districts literally don't do much chopping and cooking, but they open up a package, they heat it, and they serve it. So that may not be a good fit for local food if that's the extent of their kitchen infrastructure. Okay. So salad bars can be an amazing way to get particularly, you know, vegetable and fruit horticultural products on the school food menu. This is a picture of Madison County's salad bar. Many of them now after COVID have transitioned to like a grab and go pre-boxed salad bar. Actually, Madison County, this is a picture of, they now have boxed salads, but still it can be an amazing way to get in your local food onto the bar, because like, for example, I can see baby carrots in this picture right here. Well, you may not need enough baby carrots to feed the whole school district, but you have enough for the salad bar. It could be, some marketing around it, like there's maybe always one local item on the salad bar, and it changes from month to month. But the students could know and get excited about it, especially for high school students and middle school. This can be a good option. So, right. All right. So when the school needs the product, they may be used to bi-weekly delivery. They may be used to weekly delivery. Just depends. But you do want to ask them when they would prefer delivery. They likely get in their big order from, I keep saying GFS because that's common, but also Creation Gardens does quite a bit of school sales. So they probably get their big order from those on 1 or 2 days of the week, and their cold storage may be very full on those days. So they may appreciate delivery on another day of the week. It does definitely depend on the school's storage capacity. So you also need to think about, if you're going to stagger out your sales, a school is going to be the same as any other buyer. If you're going to stagger out your sales, do you have the capacity to store it on farm? I love the idea in the chat box, David, a hot dog bar with local condiments. I could also think of, a hamburger with local tomatoes. That'd be cool. Yes, timing is also very important. Good point, Mackenzie. You don't want to drop off in lunchtime. So just like you wouldn't want to deliver to a restaurant at 5 o'clock on a Friday, you do not want to deliver to a school at 11 o'clock on a Monday, likely, unless the school says that's exactly what we want. But all right, so Jackie talked a little bit about this, about how to find out, who to contact. The key person in your school that you need to know is the food service director. So I'm gonna pause sharing my screen now and find who the food service director is in one of the counties that was mentioned in the chat. So Meade County. I don't think I've looked at their website, so this will be real-time learning. Sorry, I should. Meade County for me. It's not a cop-out, so I'll have to figure it out. Okay, so Meade County Schools, got a menu up here. It's usually under departments. There we go. Food services. That's where I'm going to click. Ooh, look, they make it very easy. It's the first thing that comes up. Jennifer Miller is the food services director. That's her phone number. If you click that link, her email address will come up. So all you would have to do is email her to get in touch. And then, awesome. So they have their menus online as well, breakfast and lunch at all of their different schools. So I'm going to pull up the high school lunch menu and just take a look at this. So I'm a little confused. Hold on. All right, so they might have a rotating menu like every 3 weeks where the same things are getting served. I'm not sure, but that may be what it is. But looking here, okay, garden side salad, that would be a potential. Applesauce could probably be switched out with whole apples. Broccoli, cauliflower, carrots. Sloppy Joe obviously has ground beef. Salsa, you know, you could sell pepper. They're probably not making that salsa in-house actually, so maybe harder sell, but there's a lot of options on this menu is all I'm trying to say. All right, so depending on storage of products will determine your delivery. Anderson County takes in the AM. Franklin County can receive all day before they store offsite. Great information. So you're already selling farm to school. That's awesome. We do ground beef with those 2 counties. So I'm going to do one more school example. It may be easy or obvious to you all, but I had to kind of become familiar with school websites before I could find where they were listed online. So I think someone said Pendleton County earlier. So I'm going to do that one because I haven't looked at that one either. Let's see. Right. So I'm having to look a little bit here, but I can almost always find it. There we go. Okay, so it's under this extra tab, and then it has food service. So that was not totally obvious to me. Look, okay, so they've got it. Lisa Mitchell, food service coordinator. They list her phone number, but they don't list her email, at least that I can see. So then what I do, because you're perfectly fine to call first, but generally if you just search this person's name, there we go. So I just searched this person's name, and either I missed it on the web page or it's pulling it up from somewhere else, but there we found our email, lisa.mitchell, and this is the standard equation for, you know, school email addresses. So anyway, I hope that was helpful maybe to walk through a couple of those examples. And then because ground beef came up in the chat, I'm going to step up on my soapbox of ground beef for a minute. Oh, Henry County. Okay, you want to see that example. I'll do that last one. Oops. I also just want to say that don't limit thinking about farm to school to public schools. If you have private schools in your area or in your delivery area, they're a great option too. Sometimes they have more money to spend on food and less requirements. So just something to think about. Okay, so for this one, I clicked on departments, not finding it.
It's there, Olivia.
There it is. There it is. Sorry. School nutrition. Anna Lusk is the director. It looks like if you click her name, yep, email will pop up. So it popped up on my other screen. But all right, that you guys get the gist. So that's my examples of the schools. My soapbox on local meat, just quickly, is that many times when food service directors hear local food, they specifically think vegetables and fruit. But as you all know, we have a lot of local meat producers in Kentucky, and that number is growing. And sometimes those farmers really have problems moving or selling those products that you mentioned, Cody, sausage and ground beef. So steaks may sell easy at the farmer's market, but you may not be able to sell the amount of those ground cuts that you need to move the whole animal. So if a school cooks raw meat, which is a big if they don't, I would say don't waste your time unless you're really passionate about converting your local school system. But if they do cook raw meat, there's a great chance that they would be willing to purchase some of it locally, especially with supply chain issues that have been happening right now and the increase of meat products through national distributors. So that's my soapbox. All right, I gotta change my screen a little bit, sorry. Okay, so that we're just getting ready to go to this slide. Do you know who to contact? Well, you do now, or I would encourage you to look it up now during my presentation or after the call, and you can find out. Micro purchases are an amazing way to get started with the school system. So you may have heard about, this formal bid process, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think micro purchases are anything under $10,000 over the course of the school system. It used to be lower than that, from what I understand. Mackenzie is giving me a thumbs up. Great. So perhaps you think differently from me, but for many of the farmers that I work with, they would be very happy with sales of $9,000 to a school district in a school year. That would make a big difference on their farm. They don't need $40,000. They just need, $5,000 to $8,000. So keep that in mind. Micro purchases are an amazing way to get started before going through the big bid process. So some other ways to kind of, if you want to get your feet wet working with school systems, because the last thing that we want you to do is to have one conversation with a food service director, and then you think that they're going to buy your entire tomato crop, but they don't. So a lot of times we just suggest that people, like any sales relationship, start small and see that it goes really well, and then you can grow from there. So some examples of places to get started. So harvest of the month is an idea that you could pitch to your food service director. Say, look, I don't need to be on your menu every day, but maybe once a month, or maybe Fresh Friday. So every Friday, they're going to have something on their menu that's local. So not putting the pressure on them to all your food needs to be local next month. That's not what we're talking about. The Kentucky Crunch is Kentucky's version of a national crunch event, which is during Farm to School Month, which is October. So the Kentucky Crunch encourages schools to serve something that kids can crunch into. So it could be an apple, it could be a carrot or a cucumber, and that's on a specific month of the year. Taste Test, or the FFVP, Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program. Classroom lessons, so samples that way. The picture on the screen is from Need More Acres Farm in Scottsville, Kentucky. So Allen County, down in the southwestern part of the state. And you can see these sample cups that they've put together with grape tomatoes, sliced cucumbers, and sliced bell peppers. And they look very attractive. And I will say, they have gone to great lengths to make this possible in their local community. And they're very savvy, and they have, I think Michelle would be okay with me saying this, but they have applied for competitive farm to school grants to help facilitate some of the work that's needed to make something like this happen. So the little cup that the veggies are served in, I personally don't know how a farmer would do all of that on their own and be profitable without some community support. So just a little caveat there. But community support is available, and you could apply to a farm to school grant is what I'm saying. Yeah. And Mackenzie put a thing in the chat. Michelle's the only farmer in Kentucky that has received a farm to school grant. It's not, from my experience, it's not entirely common that a producer would have the time to put together an application or the desire to, but if you're interested, the organization that I work for, K-Card, does review grant applications. So give us a shout. And I'm going to try to keep going quickly because I feel like I'm running out of time. So I'm going to skip this applied activity because we've done some of that. Look at your menu and brainstorm what products could be local, what's going to be easiest for your school to prepare. So cooking a butternut squash is going to be way different than serving cherry tomatoes. So I'm glad that I saw some of you all put cherry tomatoes on your potential product list. We've talked about some of this. Some schools have gotten really creative with products that require a lot of labor. So for example, shucking corn is labor intensive. So they have like the FFA students or community volunteers harvest all the corn from the garden and shuck it, and they serve it to the whole school system the next day. That would be like in a school garden example, but an example of what's possible. Watermelons require slicing, obviously. If you are selling to Creation Gardens or What Chefs Want, which will require a GAP audit, they do have a kitchen in Cincinnati that they call their prep kitchen. So they actively, they'll slice watermelons and then distribute the sliced Kentucky local watermelons to school systems. So that's an example that happened this past year. But I will say, just back on watermelons as an example for a minute, I had a conversation this week with a food service director who said, I want to buy watermelon and cantaloupe and I will slice them and serve them. So just depends on your district. I'm gonna keep going. So again, another picture from Need More Acres Farms. I mean, beautiful, beautiful packaging and slicing and dicing. They have a commercial kitchen that they built on their farm to be able to do this prep work. But if you do not have a commercial kitchen, you cannot sell this item to your school. Like you can't take the prep on yourself. The school would have to do this prep. So this farmer has taken on the slicing and dicing for themselves because they've built a commercial kitchen. So maybe that's the route for you, but maybe it's not. So maybe you just need to think about what your school is willing to process. All right, keep going. Processed meats. Obviously, if you're selling to a school and your meat needs to be processed in a USDA inspected facility. This map is 1 year old now, so there's probably some updates and there's new processors that are opening this year. So we'll have some new ones added to the list, but you cannot just work with a custom plant. It has to be USDA inspected. So there's that. Pre-cooked meats could be an option if a school doesn't cook raw meats, but chances are you couldn't do that on your farm. You'd need to partner with someone else to do that cooking. Okay, so Lee's Garden Center in Central Kentucky is a good example that they've taken on some of the value added steps. I know they slice and dice butternut squash, and I think they have a machine for sweet corn as well. But there are funds that could help with a project like this, but I don't want it to sound like they're easy because it's a federal grant application, but they're available and we encourage people to look into it. So you could freeze berries and cherries, and that way they would be available. I don't think we have any cherries in the state, so I need to take that off, but at least commercially available, so that they're available year round, not just in the month when you're picking blueberries. Jackie talked about, Creation Gardens or What Chefs Want, but this is their prep kitchen. I'm actively working on projects where we're getting Kentucky local food into their prep kitchen, and then it's going back to schools. Okay, talking about adding value to your product without processing could be some of the things Jackie mentioned in her presentation as well, like doing a school visit, working with the kids in the garden one day, doing a farm tour. But the thing I want you to consider is that your time is not free. So you need to make sure you factor that in, or just have some sort of cap maybe on that if that's applicable to you. So recipes, community support, I would really encourage you get the community plugged in to local food system. Yes, you can generally charge for field trips, but field trips is kind of a whole nother bucket of worms that would maybe require a whole nother presentation, having students out to your farm. So you want to make sure it would be ready and safe for students. Regional processing kitchens. So UK Extension does have a great list of commercial kitchens in Kentucky that you can find online. And I'd encourage you to look at that if you're interested in those. We don't have a lot of options for what I call co-packers, where you drop off your product and they say cook it in sauce for you. There are a couple examples. Maybe the Kane Kitchen in Letcher County would be willing to do that. Maybe Custom Food Solutions for very large growers in Louisville, KHI in Northern Kentucky, but there's not a whole lot of options there. So if you're further processing, you may have to do it yourself. All right, we're gonna watch a short video, maybe, of a producer out in far Western Kentucky that's selling to schools now. And Mackenzie, you just stop me if this isn't going over well.
I can't hear her. Yesterday when I showed a video, I had to stop share and then reshare, and there's something in the bottom left that you select that says share sound.
Okay, I'm out of the tech practice. I used to know how to fix this, and I'm not so confident in myself now. Okay, share sound, cool. Share. You let me know.
We wanted to sell to our local school systems because we know that there is a nutritional guide that they have to meet, and we know that we have that organic lettuce produce that meets that standard, and we are able to supply it year round. And I think it's a great incentive with the farm to school program for the schools to be able to take advantage of that and get a premium product, and for their kids to eat.
What types of lettuce do you sell to the schools? Why did you pick that variety?
We have a few different varieties that we sell. We have a Rex Butterhead because that is one of the darker greens that is one of the requirements for the school cafeterias. And then we also do add in some red romaines and green romaines, a summer crisp lettuce. We just give them a variety. It's almost like a spring mix, so it not only tastes good, but it looks pretty.
So once the school is getting started again, how often are you delivering to the schools?
We have one school that we deliver to, Mayfield Independent Schools over in Mayfield, Kentucky, and we deliver to them once a week. So we deliver to them on Mondays, and we deliver to their high school, middle school, and elementary schools. And each individual cafeteria manager will contact us the week before and tell us how many totes they need. So instead of using packaging that they have to discard and get rid of, we just put them in a sterilized tote, and the heads are loose in there, and then we will trade out with them the next week, and that way we're saving on waste as well.
Did you have to adjust your production schedule to meet this need?
Yes, we did. We increased seating. I actually contacted them a few weeks back just to know what their plan was, if they continue to use us, and that way I can seat accordingly to what their volume will be.
You already answered, but how do you package your product? Can you answer both with school and for commercial?
So, like I mentioned, for packaging for the school, we just do it in the sterilized plastic totes, and that way we're able to cut down on the waste. and then we'll just switch the totes out, bring them back, clean them, and reuse them. And then on the commercial level for restaurants, and we do the same thing for them with the totes, but then if we're selling to grocery stores, then we package it individually. We use the clamshells or crispers for our butterhead and our crisp lettuce, and then for the romaine and the wildfire mixed lettuce, then we use some polypropylene bags.
What has been your biggest challenge so far with farm to school?
With farm to school, probably just trying to get our produce into the schools. I'm not sure what the barrier is. We have discussed it among ourselves. It seems like maybe it's just easier to order everything maybe off of a Cisco truck. Maybe it is a little more work involved for those individual managers. I don't think a price point is a problem. Maybe also completing the work or the training for the Kentucky Proud program. So I think it could be several different things, but hopefully we can, get more schools on board.
All right, I hope that was helpful. So I'm running out of time, so I'm going to go fast. I don't want to skip this. Please, please, please consider the full cost of your production. We want you to make money in these deals and for it to be a good thing for your farm to be involved in. So, like we said, there can be funding options for value-added products. The value-added producer grant is actually open right now. If you reach out to K-Card and have interest in a specific grant, we'd be happy to help you. Get on our funding newsletter list. I'll send you a link after my presentation. So one Central Kentucky farmer said, farm to school for them is not their highest profit margin, but he said a guaranteed sale is worth far more to me than the highest price sale because he could count on it. And could increase his volume. It will be closer to some wholesale market channel prices probably than farmers markets, although pricing has changed a lot in the last couple of years. So there may be some more leeway. And relationships are so important. That would be one thing that I really emphasize. So yeah, if you're interested, make a list of products that you grow, talk about them with your food service director. She may say, I will not serve potatoes, but I would love to serve cherry tomatoes. I don't know, but you won't know until you develop a relationship. And here's my contact information. If I can be of any service to you, you've got my email and my phone number. So thanks for your time.